Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 79 of the All Dolphins podcast, where today we are joined by a very special guest who you see in the try box here. We will get to
Poker Todd.
Poker Todd. I was debating whether to throw a spoiler or the Poker Todd a little bit later. First off, episode 79, we're going to dedicate this one to two offensive tackles who played back-to-back, one of whom was a member of the 1972 perfect season, Wayne Moore, whose son Solomon Moore wound up playing at the University of Miami. Omar, that part you might know.
Nope.
Okay, before your time. And then the other 79 is a former first-round pick from the University of Michigan. Yes, my good friend John on X. You got this one. I'm going to use the one that you threw out there. John Giesler, who was a very good, never made the Pro Bowl, but he was a borderline Pro Bowl type of player. Very solid left tackle for many years. And Omar shaking his head like, who the hell is he talking about?
No clue.
Okay.
But people love it.
Exactly.
Stroll down memory lane.
And not everybody's a teenager
80s,
like you, Omar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when we get into the 80s and can talk about wide receivers, and then I might be in my bag there. Then, yeah.
Okay, we'll get to it. I'll make a special effort to come up with guys who are more your contemporaries as opposed.
That's why Omar is such a negative Dolphin fan. He doesn't know how rich the history is.
That's a very good point.
Negative Dolphin fan. How dare you, Poker Todd? I'm not a negative person. I'm a realist. You
have witnessed some bad football.
That you will have a "that's so Dolphins" moment this season, and I'm going to rub it in your face. Watch.
Wow.
It's tradition.
It's also our job to keep everything realistic, is it not, Omar?
Yeah, they win today, man. It's Super Bowl.
Okay, there you go. No overreaction there. By the way, I dug it up because that's what I do. If Dolphins do win tonight at Gillette Stadium, they will be 2-0 for the 22nd time in franchise history. And it will be the fourth time they started season 2-0 with both of the wins coming on the road. They did that last in 2000, was it 13 or 14? So anyway, in that year,
that's Philbin era.
Yes, it was. There was something else that happened in 2013 that we don't need to go over right now because we went over it last week as well. Let's start with the news of the day yesterday. And as usual, there were some moves made on Saturday. Practice squad elevations. Kind of remember you and I calling that one, Omar. Chase Winovich and Cameron Good both called up.
Yes. I think they'll be special teams contributor. If there's ever a game on the Dolphins schedule where special teams is at a heightened level of importance, it's this game. You take an L to the Patriots just about every year from a special team standpoint. It's an equalizer in the game. You have more talent than them. If they can win the special teams category of this game, they can really close the gap between you and what they can do. So you got to put your best foot forward.
And I would say, since the Dolphins have a better team than New England, just give me a wash on special teams, and that's gonna work. And against the Chargers, I don't think there were any big play on special teams other than obviously the missed PAT at the end of the game that could have proved very, very costly. Also
you got to factor in with Jalen Phillips basically dealing with a back issue. Both of those guys are pass rushers. I didn't say they're good pass rushers, but they're both pass rushers. Chase is a former Patriots player, so you always know what those rivalry games do. They inject some steroids into how much effort. Well, I shouldn't say steroids. It's some HGH into how much effort the players produce. But if Jalen Phillips cannot play, I really expect Emmanuel Ogbah to have an elevated role, and then we're probably going to see Andrew Van Ginkel as an edge guy as well, even though that would have me, I don't know about that.
A little queasy. So bottom line is there are options, and then Winovich gives them one more option, along with what he can do on special teams as an edge defender if Phillips wind up not being able to go. There was also a roster move made. This one, can't say we're surprised. Deshaun Hand was signed from the practice squad to the active roster to make room. The Dolphins waived safety Veron McKinley III, who I would start the clock now and when he's back on the practice squad. And I think it's a matter of time.
However, I would like to point out
Go ahead.
That move seems a little bit interesting. Before the knee injury, we both projected that Deshaun Hand would probably make the 53-man roster over Peely. The fact that you still keep Peely and now elevate hand, who might be elevated now because his contract doesn't have to be fully guaranteed in week 2. But also keep in mind, there's a possibility because you could have just elevated him from the practice squad. But so maybe somebody put a claim in on him and they had to make a decision.
Well, somebody contacted him. You don't have to put in a claim for a guy in the practice squad. You can just straight up sign him. And yeah,
yes, but if somebody's
Dolphins
attempting to sign you and you would like to continue to remain in Miami, you present that to the team, and then they're forced to make a decision. Also, the release of Verone McKinley kind of hints that Brandon Jones is ready to be a contributor as well,
without question. And then the other personnel move we have to address is DB Kelvin Joseph, special team specialist, did not travel to Foxborough with his teammates. He's got a family situation, will not play. That's an absence that's going to be felt on special teams. Joseph tied for the team lead in special team snaps with Duke Riley against the Chargers, which is another reason why you elevate both Good and Winovich. So that takes care of the news. And now we'll turn it to you, Omar, to introduce and talk about our good friend Poker Todd.
This is something that we have been discussing for quite a while, probably since the season began. This gentleman that you see below me, his name is Todd. I call him Poker Todd. He is a Dolphins fan. He is a Tuanon member. I'm putting his business out there. Very adamant, staunch defender of Tuanon. So Poupard, watch yourself.
Yes, I will stay on the show. Go ahead.
But he's also a professional gambler. And I call him Poker Todd because he makes his living as a poker player. He does a lot of math. He turns gambling into math, which sounds really, really boring. But if it can make you money, it's very interesting. And when we asked people if they would like a betting segment and a betting element, it was overwhelmingly yes. I know from my experience with I Am Athlete, where we pulled in millions of dollars in advertising dollars from betting sites, that betting is the future of sports. I will share this one story. I remember when I was an intern in 1997, I was there. You were there, Alan, covering the Dolphins with Jason Cole. And there was a guy who was in the media room. His name was Big O. And he was talking up a storm about how fantasy football was going to take off and be the newest thing and run the league and drive interest and drive attention and help them make millions. And he needed to be on top of it. He needed to be on the cutting edge of fantasy talk. And lo and behold, Big O was right about fantasy football. Well, gambling, which is on the doorsteps of becoming legal in Florida. I believe there was some legislation that just got denied, which is going to open up Seminole to allow them to begin sports betting again. It's very close to Florida. It's open in plenty of other states. If you know the right people and know the right apps, you can bet already. Right now, we're Todd, help the people understand the positives and negatives of sports betting.
Well, first off, the negative, you have to bet with your head. I mean, there's two types of players. There's recreational players, and it's a fun Sunday afternoon. What you never want to do is turn what everybody's favorite pastime is into a stressful event. Sunday evening, you should not be able to go to bed because you had such a bad day gambling. So number one, you want to make sure you're betting safely. Number two, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of these lines are based obviously on what the players have produced, but also on what public perception is. The Dolphins right now are a team that offensively you could make some money because they're putting up telephone numbers. Last week, Tua's numbers of over 350 yards, Tyreek's numbers of over 150 yards receiving, Tua with 3 touchdowns, and Waddle with over 70 yards. $100 play on that was $6,909. And they crushed those numbers. Tyreek had 70 yards more than that. Tua had 70 yards more than that. So that's the beauty of being a Dolphin fan right now. If you're going to play offensive props, there's a lot of money to be made if they continue the success.
Now, hold on. What about the fear of them not being able to replicate that, or a coach like New England trying to take Tyreek away from you? How do you factor that in as a gambler?
Well, That's one of the best things about this podcast. You guys are turning out some of the most informed Dolphin fans. You, after watching you guys all week, you have a real good idea of what the game plan is going to look like, where we'd like to attack the other team, how the other team's going to attack us. And it just gives you a little bit of knowledge on, these lines come out and they're based in players' previous production, but these aren't team experts. These are guys that are putting out statistics based on what the averages for every guy is. And you can really find some areas where, just to give you an example, Alex Zingold today is even money to have over 4.5 yards receiving. As a Dolphin fan, you would expect that Tua is going to find him once or twice as an outlet and have over 4.5 yards receiving. And these are the type of things as a Dolphin fan that you can find, and you don't need to bet everything. You don't need to find every winner, one or two winners for the day, and that's enough. So there's a lot of opportunity, like I said, especially on this offense, the way they spread the ball around. Some of these numbers, Durham Smythe is 25.5 yards on an over-under today.
I saw it at 15 yards on Thursday.
Well, you can, and that's the other advantage. And if this segment's successful and we continue it, we can see where they also offer alternative yards. So where they say 25 is the even money favorite, which basically means for every $10 you bet, you're going to win $10. You can also be willing to lay a little bit more. And this was where parlays come in, where you can lower that to like 15 yards. You'd be paying a little bit more to win that $10. But when you combine it with something else, it pays off well. So like I said, hopefully this is successful. The people enjoy it. We win some money, and we'll continue to evolve, and you guys will learn how to make some money, combining some of these things.
So if I may interject, when you mentioned the parlay that you talked about with Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and Tua touchdown passes, like those numbers were based on a parlay. Like, for example, the over-under for Tua, I know was not 350 just by itself. So I'm curious, what was the over-under for Tua passing yards?
It was about 268 yards.
Okay. And what is it this week?
This week, if you're playing on DraftKings, it's 263.5 yards. If you're playing on FanDuel, it's 268.5.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, in the opener at Hard Rock Stadium last year, I want to say Tua had 267. Is 267 or 276? It's one of those two. So he was right in that range.
And then as we continue to evolve again, there's some where these sites really mess up is they're all based on an algorithm. You don't have someone looking at every wager. So perfect example, let's say today we wanted to go and think Miami's going to match the duplication of last week. And you had Tua at 329.5 yards, and Waddle at 79.5 yards, and Hill at 104 yards, and Tua with 2 touchdowns. That would pay $1,100 for 100 or $110 for $10. But if you don't think Mac Jones is him, if you think that Tom Curran's a little nuts and Mac's going to throw 2 interceptions, that goes from plus 1,100 to plus 5,000 by just adding Mac Jones 2 interceptions. So sometimes the algorithm gets triggered by that one prop that doesn't belong in there, and it turns an $1,100 winner into a $5,000 winner. And I think Mac's completely capable of throwing 2 interceptions, especially if Miami can get ahead.
No, he can. I'm trying to remember. I don't think he threw. I know the Dolphins had 3 takeaways in the opener against the Patriots. I know one was a Javon Holland interception. I think the other 2 were 2 fumble recoveries. In fact, I know the other 2 were 2 fumble recoveries. So
let me ask you, Poker Todd, if I'm just an average fan and I say, I want to make this game interesting for me, and I've got $100 that I want to put online, what's the wisest way for me to try to maximize my $100?
I think that, again, if you're of the mindset that you think Miami is the better team, they're giving 2.5 today, which basically means they're going to win the game. I mean, is there the possibilities of 1 or 2 point game? Yes. But if you're of the mindset that Miami's the better team and they're going to win by a field goal or more, I think the safest play is like that. What I put together was Miami minus the 2.5 points. So they need to win by 3 or more. Tua over 254 yards, because again, if they're going to be successful, that's basically an average type day. Tyreek for 64.5 yards.
That's easy money.
And Tua for 1 touchdown pass. That pays 3 to 1. So a $50 bet would pay $150. And again, yes, I mean, barring something unforeseen. I would go into that game feeling like that's a very safe wager if you're of the mindset that Miami's a better team.
I would even throw, I think Durham Smythe and Alec Ingold are easy money on this game. They'll be so often, because they're going to be bracketing Tyreek, they're going to be on alert for Jalen. Those two are going to be wide open most of this game. And the way that Tua plays, he finds the open receiver, or he knows what the outlets are. One of the things people underestimate about Tua is his ability to read defenses and diagnose what happens. That is a precursor for being successful in the RPO offense. And what people don't realize is the Dolphins are probably about 30% to 33% RPO, which basically, when you're an RPO offense, one player indicates what's going on and where Tua needs to go. And he reads that so quickly that he finds that open receiver. And I think it's going to be Durham. I think it's going to be Ingold. So what's their numbers in terms of what they expect from Durham and Ingold?
Alec Ingold is over 4.5 yards is his over under. Smythe is 25.
I'll take the over.
River Craycraft is 9.5 yards. So that's what I did. I had looked also at one of my safer bets today that I'll be playing myself. Is the notion is Belichick will make you beat him left-handed, which means that he wants to take away what you do. And that's why 2 is 4-0, because he's a lefty. But one of the safer bets.
Lefty too.
Yes. My wife as well. One of the safer bets.
Weirdos.
Thank you very little.
One of the safer bets today, in the event that he takes away what Tua really wants to do, Tua 254.5 yards, Waddle 49.5 yards, Braxton Berrios for 15 yards, Smythe for 3 receptions, and River Craycraft for 10 yards. That's in the event that he wants to take away Waddle or wants to take away Hill. Tua, believe it or not, I believe Waddle's Tua's security blanket. I believe when things go bad, you'll start getting the 8 and 10 yard passes to Waddle. That's his security blanket. That's when you're going to get the guaranteed 50 yards out of Waddle. And that's a plus 600. That's 6-1. The beauty of these bets is you don't need to win every one. You need to win one every 6. And the Dolphins right now, they're an offense, they're a cash register. They really are. There's so many opportunities on this team because of the numbers they put up offensively, minus the rushing yards, because quite honestly, every week I just don't even look in that section because I have no idea where the rushing production is going to come from Miami. So
that's fair. That's
okay.
fair. That's justified.
And this is the part, hold on a second. This is the part where I'm going to be the realist. You're being the fan. I'm going to be the realist. And we're talking about all these glowing passing numbers. Absolutely. Off one game against the Chargers. I hope nobody is thinking it's 466 passing yards against the Patriots, because I'm not seeing it. I don't see Bill Belichick completely shutting down the Dolphin offense. I don't see that. But I know we're talking here like, ton of yards for him over here. I
think the over, I think the books have it right. About 250 to 260 yards is about where the benchmark should be. I mean, I think over that's a good game from Tua, and as a fan or to a supporter, I'm looking for 275 to 300 as, he played a solid game. I think that's on the field.
Completely fair.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, Polka Dot. If I had $100 I want to put on the game, you would advise me to spread that around in a couple of bets? Because you said something that triggered me, which is you want to win 1 out of every 6 bets. And I'm assuming you're talking about parlay. Is it wise for me to bet the game straight up, or do I need to put it in a parlay? Like, how do you recommend I section off my $100 that I want to use for entertainment factor?
Every game will be different based on the matchup. This one, I think the safest bet is something along the lines of Miami minus the 2.5 parlayed with your favorite prop. Because I do believe Miami is going to win the game by 3 points or more. And then whether you think it's a Tyreek Hill day or a Jalen Waddle day, or, the Dolphins minus the 2.5 and Alec Ingold over 4.5 yards, that's going to pay you probably 2 to 2.5 to 1. If you were to just put Alec Ingold over 4.5 yards and Miami over 2 and Miami to win the game by more than 2.5. And that's and like I said, every game will be different, because if we were playing the Chiefs, my suggestion wouldn't be bet Miami to win the game, or even with the points, there's probably a better avenue to place your money. Today, it would be Miami to beat New England by more than 2.5 and your favorite prop bet. That would probably be where I allocate it. Now, if you're
and just one bet,
yeah, just
Not-
one, because as Adam said, you just can't figure out if what we can expect out of this offense every week. Last week was a microcosm. I think it continues, but it's fair to say, let's see it against the defensive-minded coach who has seen this offense a couple times. And New England played Philadelphia really well last week.
Hold up against a good defensive coach.
Yes, exactly.
a great defensive coach. What are you
No,
talking about?
as opposed to Brandon Staley, who's a defensive coach
In reputation only.
And I don't know exactly how great he is. And if you recall, Omar, when we talked to Vic Fangio and somebody asked him about the rise of Brandon Staley, his answer was as polite as could be. But I mean, if you read between the lines, it was like
Really fast. Yeah.
really fast. That's what he kept saying.
It was really fast. Well, I think that's a little bit of jealousy because of how Vic Fangio has had to labor and struggle. But I think part of that byproduct is his personality, which is very gruff. It's very in your face. We all know those guys.
He's an old school coach.
They usually
probably resents the young whippersnappers getting up so quickly when he had to pay his dues for a long time.
Because they know how to play the game, though, Poop.
Yeah.
You know how it works when people know how to play the game. And then there are old guys like us, I'm including myself. I'm not a game player. I don't play the game well. It's not to your advantage.
Trust me, I don't play the game well because there's a very easy game.
I'm preaching to the choir on that one, which is why we were late. And people were like, how did that pairing go together? And I'm like, we've been friends and we literally watched practice together for 15 years. People don't know this, but I always say the only eyes I ever trust out there is Poupard's eyes. Like if I miss
it amazes
something,
me because my wife comes from a media field background as well. And it's funny because you guys have a position where you go to be lied to every day and you smile at them while they lie to you. They know they're lying to you. You know they're lying to you. And you guys have to act like this was a normal conversation. And then you have to go do your research and see what the truth is.
No, that's not fair because I will say this. I take great offense when coaches lie to me. And they've always, throughout the years, every coach labors to not lie to you because they know if they get caught in a lie, it's going to be hell and fury and fire and brimstone. So they don't tell you the full truth, or they'll tell you, I can't tell you these things, or and we will do it depends on your relationship because we did do them solids all the time in terms of things that we know that we don't talk about.
Right.
And it's about building trust, and we're all doing that right now with McDaniel. But I used to love Gase because Gase used to remember Poop. I loved Gase from the standpoint of Gase was a straight shooter and he'd tell you things. Now you couldn't run with it. Some of us did. I'm not going to call any names, but you generally couldn't run with it, but you could use it as institutional knowledge. And that's what you hope to get to. And I remember back in the day, Giants writers would tell us all the time, back in the old school media, Fridays used to be the session where the coach would come and sit down and talk to the media about what's real and like what's going on. And you couldn't write any of it, but you at least had institutional knowledge. Those days are long gone.
No, and to your point also, the one thing that sometimes the fans don't get is that GMs, for example, coaches or players will say what they have to say given the question. Latest example, when Chris Greer is talking about his conversations with the Colts about Jonathan Taylor, and he says no offers we're exchanging all that. They had conversations, even if it was like it was just like, how about this guy? How about this guy?
Yeah.
Technically,
what technically is a formal offer? Does he have to submit it in writing?
Correct. And then you have some fans who go, well, there you go. Chris Greer told you there was no offer. Well, okay, sure. So this is where having done this a long time, you understand. And one of my big pet peeves is also player compliments about a teammate. like, what in the hell else are they going to say? I mean, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Talk about this player's, how he's become a better leader and all that. And then the player answers like you would answer.
Yeah.
Player has become a great leader.
That's not true. Sometimes when players don't over compliment, that's all that needs to be said.
How often does that happen? I know you have.
Oh, it happens a lot. It happens a lot for me.
Specific example.
Oh, Jerome Baker on Channing Tindall.
Correct. But in group settings, you stick a guy behind a microphone, and go ahead and tell me about the progress this guy has made. Oh, wow, he's going to be great. Xavier Howard on Preston Williams was ready to put him in the Hall of Fame as a rookie. Am I wrong?
He was doing really well.
Was he doing as well as X was portraying him to be doing?
No. But at that time he was. Hold on. Don't disrespect Preston Williams. Was he not the top receiver on that team that 2011 season?
11. You mean 2019 before he got hurt?
Yes,
he was. There was a low bar. It was a low bar because this was the dysfunctional early season, and then Parker took off in the second half of that season.
That first half of the Arizona game was something.
Oh, 24-23. 34-31. Yeah, it was.
Before that's the one he got hurt, right?
Yep.
Was it
on the touchdown?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's get back into gambling poker, Todd. How do you feel or comfort level if I'm just a novice bettor on just a parlay of multiple games? Because I know that's how some of people that I know that are just dipping their toe into gambling, right? They put 4 or 5 games together, and that's how they're not into the player.
Right?
Prop.
Yeah. No, gambling has evolved a lot, and that prop betting is very new with the emergence of DraftKings and FanDuel, and now they have player props, and it's kind of piggybacking off fantasy football. But my whole life, I mean, I'm almost 5 decades old. It was parlay betting, team betting, that type stuff. So these prop bets are new, and to your point about fantasy football exploding, this gambling in fantasy football is the best thing to the NFL because it makes every game interesting till the fourth quarter. The bottom line is, if you had to throw a Tennessee-Jacksonville game on 5 years ago on a Thursday night, nobody watched. But all of a sudden, when you had a fantasy player in it, it was interesting. And it was interesting till the fourth quarter, even if it was 49-3, because it affected your team. And that's been the biggest explosion. So while parlay betting, this is not a great week for that, because the games, if you were to go down, even they have what are called survivor pools where you pick one team every week. This is a tough week, even without points, to find 3 or 4 teams that you think are a surefire winner. There's a lot of good matchups or bad matchups, however you look at it this week, but there isn't a lot of, even like a Kansas City, Jacksonville type game. That's a game where you think Kansas City is probably going to win, but are you going to be shocked if Jacksonville beats them? And that type of stuff is out there this week. Even Miami.
Putting my money on Kansas City.
Yes, Jacksonville wins that game.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think Trevor Lawrence is vastly overrated. Not his ability, but what he's produced so far. Again, if you put his career up against Tua so far, and you think Trevor Lawrence has been the better quarterback, then we need to have a 10-minute conversation.
Listen, hold on. Okay. I do want you to explain to the people, Poker Todd, because you've been so adamant about Tua since his Alabama days, and people don't know. Poker Todd and I go back way long time. I invited this man to my wedding, and I knew him as a fan on Twitter. But
October of Tua's sophomore year, I was texting Omar. You guys were in Green Bay. Omar, I need you to watch the Alabama quarterback because that's going to be our pick.
Yes, I believe you. People know I've been on Tua for quite a while, and Poker Todd is part of the reason why. Why is Tua so good for betting? Gamblers.
This is why Tua, first of all, Tua wins 62% of his games, which is why he's supposed to be, every Dolphin fan is supposed to love him, because no quarterback in Dolphin history besides Bob Greasy won 62% of his games, including Dan Marino. So I go to bed happy 62% of the Sundays. And then my weeks are good because of Tua being our starting quarterback. But Tua's efficiency leads to the victories. And this is a much longer conversation, so I'll just give you a snidbit. Tua's efficiency that people haven't been able to point to is the fact that he is the equivalent of a power run game. And as I grew up in football, power run game shortened the game and you got to take the air out of the ball. Well, Miami consistently is one of the teams that runs the least and has the least rushing yards. And if you look at time of possession, we rank up there with teams that run the ball the most in the NFL, because the ball never hits the ground when Tua throws it. The ball doesn't hit the ground. The drives continue. He converts third downs and he shortens the game, and you don't even realize it. That people don't talk about that. They don't see it. I know what it is. I know what the numbers are because this is the math I do. But that's Tua's secret power, is the fact that he shortens the game offensively for the Dolphins, almost like they have a run game, because he keeps the clock moving. If you look at time of possession and our run attempts, it's shocking, the discrepancy. It shouldn't be what it is, but that's his superpower. And so he will find 250 yards today, even if it's a bad day, because they will continue to throw the ball in lieu of a running game. You know, they look at him as the short running game. You know, I mean, he throws on third and short more than anybody in the NFL. You know, so, and then he will, you know, and then he has the gazelles outside that, you know, he could rack up 80 and 90 yards on a drive in a minute and a half. I mean, that's just, no one else has that. So, you know, Tua is a pretty safe bet today.
All right. Any other game this week that you think is easy money?
I think the Giants over Arizona. I don't think the Giants are that bad. And I think Arizona played as well as they're going to play last week. You know, week one, everybody feels like they got a shot. They showed up and played over their heads. I think they're in for a long season. And I think the Giants last year was a bit overblown, but they're not that bad. Yeah. You know, they ran into a buzzsaw, and, you know, I think now they realize, listen, Saquon Barkley is our team, and let's give up the Daniel Jones experience and, you know, let's count on our horse in the backfield.
Any game or prop bet you stay away from this week that you just say, oh, that's a sucker's bet?
I think that the league is a little too high on Justin Herbert, in that Justin Herbert's yards typically come in losses. You know, he has a lot of 250-yard days in winning performances, and then you'll see the 329 when they're down 14 with 3 minutes left to go, and he gets that quick 80 yards and meaningless touchdown. So
isn't that Kirk Cousins? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, him too. But I think Justin Herbert's over-under is about 275 yards. I think that's a little high, and I know Tennessee can't defend the pass, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a 300-yard day, but I'm not putting even money on that.
All right.
By the way, you mentioned the survivor pool. My advice to anybody is pick whoever's playing Arizona on just about every week.
That's it. You know, people make the mistake of picking on a team. When you go into a survivor pool, especially if you have maybe 2 or 3 picks in that league, you should be betting against, not betting on. You know, you should find that one team that's going to win 2 or 3 games and bet against them every week.
And generally stay away from road teams to pick a winner.
All right. Well, definitely, we thank you, Poker Todd. Your success in return will depend on how these numbers do and what people say in the response. But you know, you're always a friend to me. I thank you for everything you've done. I thank you for joining us. Poop, how about you close this out?
What else is there to say? Thanks everyone for watching, as usual. We truly appreciate the support. We probably don't say it enough. Please like, download, subscribe, share, tell a friend, phone a friend, email a friend, write a letter to a friend. We're also wherever you get your audio podcasts on the Fans First Sports Network under Miami Dolphins Insider. Omar and I will be back right after the game. We're going to attempt to do a live show
Right you're going to try to do the live after the game?
We're going to try it. I am technically not particularly advanced, but I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to spend the entire day before the game researching how to do it properly. I'm told it's not very complicated, so I have confidence I'll be able to pull it off. Until then, enjoy the football Saturday, everyone. Thanks.
Have a great time, guys.